Good evening and welcome. I'm Dan McPherson with Leaders Must Lead, and this is episode 7 of Finding My Path, a window into my journey in terms of building a business and my journey as I try to grow and improve in life and in the world. My little effort to make a difference. My hope is that sharing this information and these stories with you will connect, will challenge you, will give you an opportunity to take steps further forward on your path. Today, I have a good amount of things to cover. A lot of them are quick, but it's been pretty exciting. It's been a busy few days since we talked on Friday. I had an opportunity this weekend to go to a fun event, to an event that a group that I like a lot, Grove Studios here in Ypsilanti, Michigan, put on for their musicians. They are a studio that takes care of local musicians, that helps them, gives them a chance to grow and practice and to build up and even to record in different ways. And they took an opportunity to host an event that was an opening that also shared their space. They gave tours of the space. They had a concert with a number of different clients and local musicians, and it was very exciting. Why do I share that? Because again, I'm trying to give you a window into a lot of different things for me. And that's the type of event that I love. I love to see creatives helping other creatives. I love to see a dream of something that is growing and something that was a new idea in the last year or two, be able to serve the community and help grow that business. So that was pretty cool. Today, our theme or that I put in the topic line there is creating engagement. The question I have for you today is, what is your best method of connecting or of creating an authentic connection? If you've got a way that works for you or a method or a path that works for you, go ahead and put that in the comments. I would love to hear a little bit about that. As for me, I'm going to give you a couple updates from my world, share a little bit about a couple client discussions that I've had this week, and then touch on a couple of my thoughts on creating engagement before we go on our way. So I mentioned the Grove event. Another thing that's been exciting have just been discussions that have been going on with my clients. And it seems that almost every week there's a theme. There's something that comes forward that I'll talk to 2, 3, 4 clients at a time. And strangely enough, the same thing will bubble to the top. I found that happened again this week, and a couple of them that have come up consistently are the idea of being a participant versus being an owner or manager, and the idea of price versus value, or remembering that every interaction is a sale. So I met with a couple of great clients today. I met with a couple of others late last week, and these same themes came up. So let's just touch on them. The idea of participant versus owner or manager. If you are starting a business, or you are running a department, or you are running a team, the idea, of course, is that you are in charge. You're making the decisions. You are leading the team. You're helping people grow. You're helping people move forward. The reality is that sometimes when we transition into that, especially if we have targets that we're trying to hit or things that we are aiming for, that we fall more into the mindset of being a participant, totally unintentionally. Usually we're totally unaware of it as well, but we fall into that mindset where, okay, I'm just here, I'm just a cog in the wheel, or I'm looking at it through the eyes of the team at that ground level. I'm caught in the weeds, rather than taking that detachment and stepping back and keeping the perspective of a leader or the perspective of an owner. We get drawn into the tactical so much that we ignore the strategic. And that's something that it's very common. So it's good to be aware of and to take steps to prevent. This is one of the topics that I often work on with my one-on-one clients. And I wanted to mention it to you to really challenge you to ask yourself, are you caught in that participant mindset, or are you keeping the strategic mindset of an owner or a manager? Secondly, is price versus value. This is a topic I come back to quite often. I think every few weeks it seems to come up in quite a few conversations. It's just a reminder for everyone that price is largely irrelevant. The perception of value is all that matters. If you got offered a $200,000 car for only $40,000, you'd find a way to get the $40,000. It wouldn't be about about, oh my gosh, I can't come up with 40,000. It would be, I have to, because I can turn that around and make another 100. The value is such a good value that the price is a no-brainer. The same thing should be true in your businesses. And if you are concerned about where the price is at, you should focus on increasing your value so that it becomes a no-brainer for you as well. The third conversation that I've been having with my clients consistently over the last few days is just the reminder that every interaction, or really every engagement that we have with a customer, with someone that works with us, every one of them is part of or is a sale on its own. What does that mean? That means that if you have a program that or a situation where you're meeting with someone several times, you should have a strategy and an understanding that each of those component times matters, and each builds towards something: satisfaction, a great review, a renewal, whatever it might be. If someone isn't doing business with you, how you interact with them, again, is a sale or a part of a sale. The same thing for people that work for you. How you deliver things matters. Some people tell me, man, that's exhausting to think of it that way. It shouldn't be. If we're being, it might be at first because it's a different mindset, but over time, it really shouldn't be. It should be that we figure out who we are and just understand the nicer or better way to say things. That's really all it's saying, right? Is be persuasive, be engaging, be authentic. And if you do those things, then recognizing that every interaction is a part of a sale will be something that you don't have to be as conscious of, because it will become ingrained into what you do. That's part of the connection that we'll talk about more in a couple moments as well. So I'm interested in what, when you hear that, what do you think about the idea that every interaction is a sale or is part of a sale? Is that something that you found to be true? Is that something that rings kind of false or plasticky to you? Or do you kind of get it? Do you get that, hey, I see that. I see that being nice and persuasive and authentic with people is super relevant. So what else? Other things that are going on other than the client discussions, which have been fun, and that's part of why I put them up front. I have an upcoming event. I'll have more details for you in a couple of days, but I'm very excited and I could use your help. This event is going to be a training event in the evening. It's going to be near Briarwood Mall in Ann Arbor. It'll be a live event, and I'm open to potentially filming it if you guys are interested and would be interested in maybe paying a little bit to subsidize that cost from afar. I may be able to do that. Haven't really looked into it yet, but I've had a couple people ask, so I'll throw it out there. The event is going to be for about 3 hours and an evening in late October. It'll be at a hotel. We'll have some snacks. It'll be fun. The question I have for you is, which topic should I cover? There are really three options. We can either focus on decreasing stress and eliminating overwhelm. We can focus on time management. Those have a little bit of overlap, but one of those would be more the focus than the other. Or we can talk about increasing sales and revenue for creatives and entrepreneurs, really kind of increasing sales in a cynical world. And either of those would be a good topic. The cost is going to be somewhere between $79 and $99. We're going to finalize this in the next couple of days, but I would love your feedback about what topic you think would be best. Which topic would you be more interested in coming to hear about and joining us for? Also, everyone who goes is going to get a couple of special bonuses. I'll be excited to share that once the details are finalized. Next, navigating the world. My son, as I've shared a number of times, my son he's autistic. He has Asperger's. He's an amazing kid. He's super bright. He is not neurotypical. That's the word that we would use for most people, right? But so he sees life through a little bit of a different lens. And what that means is there are some things that are easier for him than there are for others. There are some things that are a little bit harder. He might see a math problem in an easier light, but he sees the social interaction a little bit harder. And I bring this up because with school back in session for pretty much everybody in the country now, for at least a couple of weeks, what we run into is, for those who are neurotypical and those who aren't, we start running into overwhelm. And it hits different kids differently. That's been hitting my household these last few days. And so that's just an added struggle, right? That adds into the parenting struggle. It kind of adds into the business struggle because you need to be there to help and support and do all the things that are appropriate there. So I'm curious, how do you deal with that type of overwhelm as your student gets overwhelmed, whether it be by activities or whether it be by homework or whether it be by trying to get grades or even just making it to school or social issues? How do you handle that? For us, we're looking for a number of things. One this weekend that we focused on is making sure that we alternate the homework, the stress time, and some positive time, some engaging playtime, if you will. And it might seem a little bit strange to add in playtime even if you have a mountain of homework. But what I've found is, much like many other pieces in time management, that balance helps a great deal. We find if we alternate a couple hours of homework and then 1 hour of play, that we get just as much done and maybe even more, but everyone's a lot happier and lower stress. So that's something that I have uncovered and connected with this week in my world. I'm curious how you deal with that. The other thing that I've been personally fighting with has been avoiding the hard things. I have a couple of things that are really important that I need to do. They're both urgent and important for those of you who've gone through the time management training with me. And I've had a hard time doing them because they are things that are physically hard for me. And it seems like I keep coming up for reasons not to have done them. I am struggling to swallow the biggest frog first and get them done. So this is me putting out into the world that I'm struggling with those things and that I need to overcome that, and that I will overcome that over the next week to make progress in those areas. And for me, a lot of it comes down to the idea that refining something is much easier than creating something. I work with creatives in part because I'm not a creator. I don't create from empty space very well. I can, much like anybody else, I can get there, but it's like bleeding and it just crushes me, and it takes 4 to 5 times the amount of time. So the ask is really huge. Whereas if I'm refining something, if as an example, if someone sends me, if I need to write a letter from scratch, it's really hard. But if someone sends me a letter, I can edit it super fast and be very effective and efficient with it. So my struggle right now is that I have a couple of things that I need to create, and that is the opposite of my wheelhouse. So I'm looking for some solutions and just need to have the discipline to get that done. Do you have any struggles like that? Do you have anything that you struggle with, that battle, that thing that maybe you're not good at, that you then find yourself avoiding or procrastinating? I have gotten to it where in my life I get away from that most of the time, but right now in this moment it has caught me a few times. The last couple of things, Dichotomy of Leadership. I'm very excited. If you guys haven't picked up this book yet, it just came out today. Go get it. This is the follow-up to probably my most gifted book of the last few years, which was Extreme Ownership by these same guys, Jocko, Willink, and Leif Babin. This is the Dichotomy of Leadership. That's that follow-up. Their first book talks about how we need to have extreme ownership. We need to make things super simple. We need to have a decentralized command. But the questions they came up were, well, what happens, how much is too much extreme ownership? Where is that balance? This book answers those questions. I'm excited to get the rest of the way into it. I've already started with the audiobook and the written book, and I'll be through it over the next few days. So if you haven't had a chance to pick that up. And a little bit to honor that, as we talk about creating engagement, which is my last topic for the day, there are a few dichotomies that I thought I would cover. Transparency versus spin. Online versus offline, share versus discuss, and ask versus receive. Each of these gets us when we go and try and create engagement. And for me, I find that I'm trying to create engagement in my personal life. I have a teenager, so I'm trying to create engagement there for sure. I'm trying to create engagement when I go somewhere. I'm also trying to create engagement in the business world and online, whether it be that I'm writing a Quora question or a Facebook post or doing a presentation like this. How do you create engagements? And I think one of the difficulties that we run into when we look to create engagement is that we struggle with transparency versus spin, right? So we want others to be transparent with us, but we are taught by society so often to add our spin. Even something as simple as, hey, how are you doing? I'm doing fine. right? Just to mask it and move on, but not have that be a real question. That may seem simple, and it is a little bit subtle because it's so conditioned to us, but it's something that pushes us away from real connection. It pushes us away from thinking that people want real answers from us. Now, am I saying you should go spill your life out to every single person you encounter? Absolutely not. I think that would probably be a bad idea, and it might not show discretion or a filter. Earlier in my life, I was that guy. Don't be that guy. It comes to one of my favorite phrases, don't be a Dan. But with the idea of transparency, ask yourself, how can I be a little more authentic in my questions? How can I, when I ask somebody how they're doing, do I mean it? If I see that they might be struggling, do I ask a follow-up? How do I connect by first reflecting transparency and then looking for that authenticity and transparency as well? How do I avoid the spin? So how do I get away from it? There's a little tangent here, which I think is important, which is not falling prey to the negative. Sometimes we don't answer when someone asks how we're doing, as an example, because we don't want to say, oh, I'm doing terrible. And I don't want you to say that. That's not great. I would rather have you change your mindset to say, hey, I'm making progress, right? Hey, I'm not doing well, but you can give that answer that I'm making progress. There are ways to look for the good part of that and answer that. Or you can say, hey, I'm working through some things, but I'm glad to be here. How are you doing? And take that. You don't have to give everything to get away from the spin, and you don't have to give everything to get to a transparency and authenticity. The second idea with engagement is online versus offline. One of the observations I've made in the last few weeks has been how different people engage online versus offline. Now, we've all heard that, right? We all know that people in groups tend to be much braver behind their computer. That's where the trolling comes from. They'll come out and say crazy things that they would never say in person. But I also find because of that, because there's that perceived antagonism and anger and bitterness online, that a lot of people struggle to engage and connect in an online fashion as well. So look at the difference between your online and offline connection. Ask yourself, how can I bring those closer together? How can I bring that authentic me online without inviting difficulty, without inviting problems? Now, for me, this is certainly a challenge because I open this up and do these broadcasts public. Anybody can join. Anybody can give their feedback. And certainly, I'm sure that I will get challenging feedback over time. I've gotten some in the past. I look for that. We'll talk a little about that on Friday, about receiving feedback. But it's more important to me to recognize that I'm going to stand up for the values that matter most to me. In other words, I'm not going to determine my actions based upon other people's reactions. I'm going to determine them based upon what I believe is right. A simple example to that, if I'm walking ahead of someone and I get to a door, I'm going to hold the door open for them. If they look at me and they're grumpy about that, that's on them. That's something that I want to do to be nice, to demonstrate courtesy to someone else. And I'm not going to let their behavior change that. And I would say that probably applies to our online versus offline personas as well. Next is share versus discuss. How often do we share information? And we just put it out there, but we don't discuss. We're not inviting a collaboration or inviting a discussion. I'm certainly guilty of this. I've been guilty of it in person. I've been guilty of it online. I'm working very hard to get away from that, to engage, to ask more questions, to look for feedback, to set things to where you go, oh yeah, I'd like to engage with that, as opposed to me just sharing. That if you're discussing, you will also find yourself sharing what is more effective and sharing what is more appropriate for what people want. The last dichotomy here is ask versus receive, which is when you are giving, when you are asking, why are you asking? Are you asking to get something out of it, or are you asking to help somebody? When I ask, what is my purpose? What is my motivation? If I ask a question because I'm trying to learn about people and I'm trying to learn how I can better help people, that will engage more. That'll be more authentic. If I'm asking just because I'm looking to receive some stuff, then I'm not going to get as far ahead. I'm not going to get as much real engagement. Now, it's different if I'm looking for help, if I just need help, right? There's something I just need to learn and I need some feedback on that. That's great to go and ask, because again, that's authentic. That's saying, hey, there's something that I'm missing and I really could use your all help with it. That's me asking for that. That's also engaging. So how do you look to connect? How do you create that authentic connection? Do these cover it for you? Transparency versus spin, online versus offline, sharing and discussing, or asking versus receiving? Do they hit the nose? Is there something that you would add? What would you do differently? Think about that this week. Think about it over the next few days, and I would love to see your feedback. I would also be very interested to hear your stories of what works for you and of how your journey is going. What successes have you had? How are you finding the next step on your path? I hope to hear those. I hope to talk with you soon. And in the meantime, I wish you well in finding your path, and thank you for joining me as I am seeking to find my path. Have a great day.